thank you very much, Jeff, to come in today.
My pleasure.
The little book of stock market cycle is the great book for the public investor to understand the nature of the cycle in investment. The book mentioned that the U.S. president cycle in the stock market, and then 2020 is the election year.
Mm-hmm.
Could you briefly explain the presidential cycle, please?
Sure. I mean, over the years, it's changed a little bit with the way society changes and the way we have a constant campaigning process now. It's pretty much nonstop versus the old days when they had to ride a horse for 3 days to get to, Washington, D.C. So, but basically, the fact that we have a regular election every 4 years on the same day, unlike, I think, practically every other, most of the major countries out there, there's a lot of parliamentary votes of no confidence and things like that. But it creates this 4-year cycle where the third year is the strongest. That's the year, like 2019, where the president or the party in power does everything that in their power to prime the pump so that the economy is firing on all pistons, doing the best it can, so that when people go to the voting booths the next year, they're feeling really good. And as we were talking about before, the stock market is basically the poll for the president. This creates a general weakness in the first 2 years, the post-election year and the midterm year. We see a lot of midterm election year bottoms. We see a lot of wars and recessions and bear markets starting in post-election years. All the major U.S. wars from the Civil War up through 9/11 transpired in the post-election year. And then the election year, which used to be quite a bit better, has been become more of a battleground year. With years like 2000, we had the undecided election and the Great Recession in 2008, really hitting the averages for the election years. But this is an election year where we have a sitting president running for re-election, which, as you were asking me before, it is generally a much better year. What I call the power of incumbency. However, we've got a few events that have rocked the markets, and it's not just about the markets and the economy and all of us hunkering down, sitting in our homes doing web interviews. It's also about the response from the federal government, from the White House, and how the country judges that response. And a lot of that judgment is in the stock market. So normally the Dow or S&P are up, Dow's up 10.1% when a sitting president's running. S&P is about 14%, if memory serves. I have to check that, but it's a bit higher than the Dow. Whereas when there's no incumbent, it's negative, like minus 1.6 or 1.7% for either two indices. Whereas all election years are about 5-6% on average. Can that lift the stock market? Can this administration take care of the major situations it has in front of it? We shall see.
I see. So that's going to be the little different on this time election. Then he's since the President Trump is going to running for the president this time, so looking for the second term. You just mentioned about the power of incumbency. So, looks like it's going to be interesting election this year then.
It is. I think part of that power comes from sitting on what we call the bully pulpit. You're constantly having press conferences if you want. You can get on TV whenever you want without paying for an ad to make some sort of announcement or presentation to the country. You're constantly, it's a constant advertisement. It's like constantly being in the background, flashing on everyone's screen, President Trump, he's the president, as opposed to the other candidates that have to pay for advertising and work to get coverage. The media does help, but that's what creates that power. There's another thing that is in the almanac this year, the 2020 almanac. We cover the presidential. I'm looking at it over here. The presidential. Can I flash it on the screen?
Yes, sir.
Here's the current copy, and then on page 26 is perspectives for the year. Some of the stuff is detailed further in the book, but there's one indicator, the presidential market performance presidential predictor, developed by my good friend Sam Stovall. Used to be at S&P, now he's at CFRA, another seasonal cycle guru and good friend and great guy. Shows that the performance of the S&P 500 through August through October, starting July 31st close through October 31st close, when the S&P is up, when it has been up since 1936, the party retains power 11 to 13 times. That's an 85% chance. You guys like to gamble over there a little bit. I mean,
I will bet for that.
I've been known to throw a few dice, and that's like taking your odds behind the pass line. That's a pretty good odds right there.
Right,
and then when the market is down over that 3-month period, the party loses power 7 to 8 times, even better odds, 88% of the time. Not as many significant numbers, but the pattern that we're seeing here is also this year potentially governed by the down January. You guys know the January barometer, and the fact that the Dow closed below its December closing low in March, and that sort of shows a kind of a typical worst 6-month scenario where the market doesn't do a whole lot from May to October. I know NASDAQ's screaming here because the technology that the companies within NASDAQ produce is what's enabling us to function economically and socially and vocationally in our jobs and with our families. So that's a bright spot. But I also think there's some technical resistance here. We've got a lot of elevated sentiments and valuations are up. So you got a confluence of all the things we look at: seasonals and cycles, technicals, fundamentals, sentiment, and then, you're looking at a potential for a bit of a retreat. We're looking at a range here, somewhere between, what is it, S&P maybe 3210 on the upside, about 2955 on the downside, or somewhere between 3,000 and 3,200. But it's July. It's the beginning of July. We've got this thing called what we call Christmas in July. It's the mid-year NASDAQ tech rally from the last few days of June through the first 9 days of July, which we're in right now. And once that's over, people are creatures of habit. They do the same things every year. I know there's still this pandemic, but the beaches and stuff around here are starting to fill up. People are itching to do something away from the market, and that tends to pull participants in trading volume, and the market tends to get softer the last half of July, the first half of August. We've seen those August, September being the worst 3 months. We've seen that weakness there. So while I definitely think the bottom is in, clearly, jobless claim spike and retreat sort of indicates that. That's a whole other story. I think there's some potential for a bit of a pullback here. Not something ominous or dire or major new bear market, but I think we've got some backing and filling and sideways action until we get to the election. And either way, win or lose or not draw, but hopefully not draw, win or lose, like 2000, generally have a fourth quarter rally. There's sort of a relief after the election's over. It's usually bigger if the incumbent gets ousted because the market was generally down coming into it because they didn't like him or her at some point. But, we still have that power of the fourth quarter, and we look for a rally after some sideways action here.
I see. You just already mentioned about there's something we should be aware of this third quarter. It's going to be a tendency to be the weak, isn't it?
Third quarter, worst quarter, very important. You've got, a confluence of things go on there. There's the psychology, as I was mentioning, of people being away for the summer, and then the return to business after the summer. I mean, you guys don't have Labor Day there, but I get the feeling there's still a vacation mentality that goes on in August. I mean, most of the planets in the northern hemisphere, where we have this summer that gets me out to playing golf and hiking and going away with my kids and family and doing stuff and the beach. And then everyone gets back to business, back to school, and you've got that portfolio window dressing at the end of the third quarter. Everyone's gearing up for the fourth quarter, and that's where we see a lot of the weakness. September's the worst month of the year, and it's because people are coming back off vacation where it was quiet in August, and then getting portfolios cleaned up and taking care of business, and it takes a little hit. The market takes a little hit because of it.
It's interesting you mentioned about the pandemic. It really has nothing much to do with how we behave. It's still the same.
It's definitely put a damper on it, but I still see it where people are, it's light at, my son said to me the other night, it's what time is it, Dad? I was like, it's 8 o'clock. It feels like it's 5:30. I'm like, yeah, it makes you want to do something. It makes you want to go outside. I mean, we all respond. It's like the circadian rhythms, we all respond to the light,
Right.
And even though the pandemic's here, we still want to do stuff, whether it's your backyard or, jumping around in your apartment, looking out the window, it's hard to break that behavior.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think pretty much we have to know about this third quarter and very interesting view about the election. We gotta be watchful the starting for end of July to the August. October, wasn't it? Yeah. So it's very interesting comment on that.
It's an important indicator. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting indicator and very highly odds. So I think that's something we should put the money on rather than put it in the stock market. Yeah,
most definitely.
Yeah, Jeff, thank you much for the interview.
Okay, it's great to be with you, Hiro. Finally get to see you.
Well, thank you very much for the comment, really. Thanks, I
My
appreciate
pleasure.
it. Right, thanks.
Take it easy, buddy.
Right, thanks. Bye.